I'm Jody Sanders with American Patchwork and Quilting, and today's video is being brought to you by Baby Lock and the Crescendo sewing machine. Now, we all probably know the basics of how to use our sewing machine, but I want to share with you today some things that you can do, some tips, maybe some accessory ideas that'll help you kick it up a notch and improve your sewing. If you're a quilter, you're probably familiar with the 1/4" foot that you can add to your sewing machine to get those accurate 1/4" seams. But did you know that there's markings on the foot that can help you do some other things as well? Let's take a look at these two 1/4" feet. One of them has a guide and one doesn't, but they both have a marking that tapers in right about here. You can see how they taper in right here, and this marking on both of these as it tapers in helps you to know when to pivot, and that's actually a 1/4" as well. So if you're putting binding on or something that has a seam where you need to be very particular about hitting that 1/4" mark, this is a great way to know that you're in the correct spot. Another foot that you may have in your accessory box is called the Clear Echo Foot. And what you're going to use the Clear Echo Foot for is to do some echo quilting on your quilt top or your quilt sandwich. So we have an example here. It's made out of clear plastic. This inner ring that you can see is a 1/4" away from the needle as you're sewing. And then the outer ring is 3/8 of an inch. So depending on how far away you want to be, you can gauge that by the markings on the foot itself. Your machine may also come with two different bobbin covers. Some have markings and some don't. So I want to show you the example on this machine. On this particular one, it has the 1/4" marking and some other markings and shows you where your needle can be positioned. If you'd rather not have markings on your bobbin cover, there's also one that has no markings at all. The next thing we're going to take a look at is a couple of the needle plates that you have on your sewing machine. You can see on this first one that's installed that there's a place for the left, middle, and right hand position for your needle to go down into that needle plate. If you're having trouble with your triangle squares going down into your needle plate, you could switch over to what's called a straight stitch needle plate. And in this case, you can see there's one hole in the center, and that's where the needle goes up and down in the machine. Now, you can only use this needle plate when you're doing the straight stitch. Spool caps can come in several sizes. Use the one that's best for the size spool that you're using. For example, on this one, the smaller one fits right in there. Yours may have a variety of sizes. It's always best to use the spool cap that's just a little bit larger than the spool of thread that you may be using. If you've ever used a metallic thread or maybe something with rayon, it may happen that your thread is coming too quickly out of your machine. Well, there's a little tool here that we can show you how to use to help that thread go through your machine more evenly. This is called a thread net. And what you do is you put your thread through it, and in this case it's a little bit longer than what you need, so we're going to go ahead and double it up. Then we're going to place it on the end of the spool, and then you put it back on your spool holder, and using that thread net will allow the thread to come more evenly off your spool. And one last tip, did you know that you can set your machine so that it starts in the same position with your needle every time? So if you like to start on the left-hand side or you like to start in the middle, you can set the default on your machine and it'll do that every time you start your machine up. We hope you've enjoyed these tips, and if you have any other questions, be sure to reference your sewing machine manual.